Hello, welcome back to the second day of Remote Design Week at the Digital Tourism Think Tank. We're really pleased for all the people who joined us yesterday. We had a lot of comments on the chat, on Twitter, and sent to us directly. So I really appreciate all the love that we were receiving there. Lots of really good feedback. I'm Nick Hall. I'm the founder of the Digital Tourism Think Tank, and I'm here with
Ramona, and I'm the programs director at the Digital Tourism Think Tank, and I work a lot with our experts and leading up, I guess, our remote design development.
Now we're all teched out here. We've got our iPads and remote sessions at the ready. We also have a remote team sitting, waiting to connect with us. And today, the topic and focus of today's session is all about remote design. Remote design is a concept, I guess it's fair to say, that we have embraced. We definitely didn't invent it. But we found it and we loved it. And this is the whole theme for this week's live stream, is remote design. And yesterday we had a session with a group of experts who joined us in person. And today we've brought another group of experts who are joining us remotely. And I guess it's fair to say today is really the day that we really kind of go into what remote design is, how it works, and really kind of start to show some of that. But I think it would be good, maybe a quick recap on how yesterday went. So Ramona, what were the kind of highlights for you yesterday?
Well, I think yesterday we started discussing a little bit different challenges. So we asked actually the industry to submit their biggest challenges in digital, and I think it was great to put that to our expert team. And I think for the highlight for me definitely was to be able to work with the experts both here like in the office, and it's great that we actually got the space from Sojourn, that were kindly enough to provide the space for Remote Design Week. So we actually used the office walls here.
Hence
around
the beautiful background of destinations that Sojourn, I guess they've been to all of them, or they work with all of them.
Yeah. And this is a great space for us to actually ideate. So yesterday we put a lot of sticky notes onto the wall. We were ideating on the different challenges. Some of them we went already into a little bit in yesterday's call. And then our experts are also joining us today remotely, and we'll sort of take that ideation further. So it's great to see, how much you can develop within a very short time frame.
Yeah. So yesterday we went through a challenge board, which was sort of 50 or so challenges that had been submitted to us. And we actually asked the experts to pick the challenges which stood out most for them. So we had a kind of a good selection of challenges yesterday, talking about innovation and how to kind of work with limited resources. That was one of the things that came up. I think for me, what stood out was definitely the data question. There were a couple of people asking, how can we do more with data? How can we make data part of what we do? And our experts kind of gave their views on, how they see those different challenges and how they could really help them to kind of tackle those challenges. Were there any that really stood out for you?
Well, I think the biggest one, which is actually the one that we will tackle throughout this week, and which is one that like most destinations are always coming to us with, is what's the future of the DMO website? Like, what should we do? What content should we have on there? How should it look like? What is the need that we can help consumers with? So I think that's definitely an interesting one, because it is just so complex, and unfortunately there's no, one answer to that question. But it's definitely going to be interesting, I think, to get all of the brains of our experts together to see what ideas we can come up with.
Okay, now we're about to introduce the remote design team that we have remotely. And what I would love for you to do, maybe, is just before we introduce them, as they're sitting on Skype there, maybe explain a little bit how this team works, how we've built this team, and what it really means to be a remote designer in this context.
Yeah, so we actually have a team of 10 experts that live across the whole of Europe, and also some in the US. And the idea is really to bring, great experts that have a lot of experience within travel, but also from other industries together to really share that knowledge with destinations. And remote design is just such a great tool and method, because it enables, teams in a destination to actually tap into that knowledge while not having to, get somebody to come and visit their office. So rather than doing a workshop day, you can actually have a remote design session, for 2 hours, supported by Skype or Google Hangout, and tools that we're using. And as part of the process of working with our experts, we've worked quite closely with them to really develop a range of different services, and we'll be talking about it later. So this week we're launching our remote design services, which are uniquely designed to really enable destinations to get actionable insights and actionable steps, so they can really take things further. And we've developed, 3 types of different services, from auditing to planning and frameworks, and to ideation, which are different because they solve different problems. And with each of the experts, we have really developed in-depth canvases that we can then film in a remote environment. So that means that different people from different teams in a destination, and also our experts, are joining a digital space, and we're filling a canvas with lots of ideas, and at the end you have something very visual that we can share with the destination, and that can then be passed on. And then it's great because it's so visual. It's cost efficient, and it's also time efficient.
I think what I like is the collaborative aspect, because with this digital canvas that we create and we bring the experts into that, the destination working as a client is really part of the whole process. So they actually we're all one team, rather than sort of seeing that kind of really distinct difference. And having that kind of collegial approach to things allows you to really kind of take off all the gloves and just be really honest about where there are challenges and where things need to change. But also I guess it allows you to be in a more relaxed environment where everybody is able to sort of be more creative and work more freely. All right, so let's introduce the remote team that we have waiting to join us. I guess we will go in the order that we have it here, which may be different if you're watching on the stream. But let's start off with introducing the team. Do you want to introduce them? You've actually worked very closely with these guys over the last couple of months developing these services. So I think it would only be right that you introduce the team that we have.
Oh, it's all of them.
The ones we have here.
All right. Yes.
Yeah.
So today we're joined by Kate Thomas, who's actually joining us remotely from Paris, and she specializes in video content. Then we have Jerry Smits. I hope the names. Okay, mind the pronunciation of my names. He's joining us.
It's Harry.
Harry.
Yeah.
Smits.
Have I got that right?
Maybe.
Thumbs up. Great.
Okay.
There we go.
He's joining us from Antwerp, and he focuses really on strategic aspects, blockchain, but also content, sharing, optimization, and really, from a strategic perspective. And then we have Talia Salem joining us, normally from Washington, but today she's joining us from California, and she's really focusing on content and partnership marketing, and also how you can optimize that process within destinations. And then we have Emma Lawton, who is joining us from London but remotely today, and she's all things digital brand and design.
If we have any trouble hearing Emma, we could probably just shout and she'll be able to hear us.
Then we have Jean-Philippe Favre, who's joining us from Geneva, and he's really specializing and focusing on big data.
Do you like the big entrance that he made? He just switched the camera on when he was introduced. We should have asked them all to do that, actually. Very good.
Well, anyway, I switched the computer as well. Just change the computer.
Thank you.
And there's another face on the stream, which is Lucy, which is our colleague, and she's on there to be able to support sort of the process of coordinating the Skype call as well. But
sound technician.
So she's the sound technician, but we want to mention her here too. So yeah, we have 5 experts joining us today.
Great. So guys, it's really good to see all of your faces again, all together. Thanks for joining us. Well, I think maybe before we go into the challenges and some of the ideas that we discussed, building from Ramona's very nice introduction, maybe you guys can, we'll give you the the opportunity to say a little bit more about, you know, what you've been doing, who you've been working with, just to give some context to that. So let's kick off with Kate.
Sure. So I work in video, as Ramona mentioned. And for me, it's all about helping travel companies tell their stories online, working on YouTube, working on all the various social media platforms, and really helping companies not just tell their stories, but doing it in a way that is optimized for the various platforms. And I've worked with Expedia and TripAdvisor, as well as other smaller companies in the travel industry, tour operators and whatnot. So I'm really excited to be able to offer my services here.
Great. Let's head over next to Gerry.
Hello, Gerry, or Jerry for the other guys that can't pronounce the I've got 20 plus years of experience now in industries that always had trouble with the internet. Marketing, TV, music industry, etc., etc. So I've always been trying to figure out what the impact is of technology on an industry, on communication, etc., etc. These days I do that as a freelancer. I've lived in London for about 15 years, but moved to Belgium 6 years ago. These days I try to add my services as a freelancer, sort of try to figure out what is the impact of technology and how can we get the most out of it. Two words that I use way too often one is blockchain, as Ramona mentioned. Trying to figure out what the hell that is about and how we can get the most out of that. And the other word I use way too often is user, because everything I try and do is always sort of focused on what it means for an end user. Call it design thinking, call it just plain old common sense. But that's sort of what runs through my service that I offer. I'm sort of a generalist. I don't have particularly niche experience in destination marketing, although I have worked for cities, but I also worked for banks, non-profits, profits, international, national, and I can handle anything. And in this context with this bunch of experts, I'm very intrigued in user behavior and how we can use that or how we can understand that to create content, to make content more shareable, etc., etc.
Great. Thanks a lot. I still need to get my head around blockchain, so I think we need to have a beer over that, Gerry, and figure it out. So, Talia, over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning here from San Francisco. I have been working in the travel industry for about 12 years. I grew up in San Francisco and have been living in D.C. for 6 years. I love travel. I've been traveling since I was 5 months old, so I feel like that's been my niche. Most recently, before I just started working with Think Tank and on my own, in a freelance capacity, I was working for Brand USA, the United States Tourism Authority, essentially, even though it's outside of the government, focusing on content marketing, all in the international space. So I'm really passionate about storytelling and how to storytell to the right audiences across multiple languages, which I'm sure all of you tuned in have to deal with that, especially being in Europe and all over the world. Also really passionate about stretching budgets with strategic partnerships, which you'll see in the services reflected online. Definitely focused on storytelling more in the written capacity and how to really make the most of your limited time, budget, and be consistent across channels. So almost more of a channel agnostic approach at first, and then kind of zeroing into how each piece of content should live natively within that platform. I'm not in Europe, but I spent a couple of years living in Europe and France, and then some time living in the Middle East as well. So I have some international experience, especially in the translation side, and really passionate about helping DMOs kind of make the most of their time. So I look forward to working with all of you, and great to meet all the experts.
Excellent. Great. So, the Brand USA experience brings something very valuable, I think, to the team, because actually, like my background working with its sort of equivalent in Europe, when you do that, you get to see the National Tourism Board experience, the sort of state or sort of, like still the top of funnel branding needs, right down to the kind of cities which have completely different needs, and you have the whole scale mixed up with that. Great. Thanks a lot, Talia. Over to Emma.
Hello, I'm literally, yes, just down the road. I'm probably the closest remote person today. I have a background in working in agencies, really. So I kind of had no previous kind of travel experience before joining the DTTT, but I've worked with kind of really big complex companies like banks, charities, educational institutions before kind of joining, which really set me in good stead for the challenges that I was going to face working with destinations. I'm really interested in brand and sort of how it kind of manifests itself digitally as well. I love to see brand as not just a flat thing, it's something that should grow and develop, and you should know how it sounds and how it moves and how it feels and all that stuff. I also have Parkinson's, which is why I'm shaking. I'm not just kind of wiggling around. So remote design is great for those of us that can't get in for other reasons. I'm also really into kind of tech. In the last couple of years through the brand stuff, I've really discovered that tech is important and a vital part of telling a brand story. So my kind of roles outside of the DTTT, I work doing brand and design, but I also work as a strategist looking at devices and apps for people with Parkinson's, which is a really interesting challenge. But I've kind of, through working with the DTTT, had some great experiences running workshops, looking at kind of brands, auditing, things like that. So travel is something I've always been really interested in, and I think the work that we're doing is fantastic. It's really exciting and it's a real challenge, but as an expert team we can definitely come together and kind of pool resources on this. But yeah, my specialities I would say are brand, design, sort of web auditing and things like that. I am really passionate about tech as well, so throw anything at me, I'm ready.
Great. And Emma is a experienced TED speaker. I think I'd never met anyone who's done so many TED Talks. You've done 3 now, right? Is that right?
Yeah,
3 TED Talks.
My fourth as well.
She's a TED serial talker. So she's done some pretty interesting things, I think. Yeah, definitely that's fair to say. And we recently worked with Emma on some work in Greenland, which was very unique as well. So yeah, and lastly, but certainly not least, introducing Jean-Philippe. So over to you, JP.
Okay, so hello everybody. So for me to be Jean-Philippe or JP, it's sometimes more easier. So 18 years plus experience. So I'm based in Switzerland. I'm remote from Geneva right now. I should have a background with a nice sun on the water fountain in my back, but not today. I got the meeting room, the box, which is interesting one. Anyway, so 18 years, basically working for tourism industry. I've been working for 5 years for Marriott Hotels in Brussels, and now for about 8 years, in Geneva Tourism. Project manager, mainly in charge of CRM, marketing automation, and analytics. So this will be my focus to, I would say, dive into data. Not to be sang, but dive. Definitely, with a real focus on analytics. And I will talk later about the different services. We'll do 3 services through DTT. And yes, happy to join you and to help you with data.
Excellent. Thanks very much, JP. And I think definitely it's fair to say that your work as project managing a lot of the data things related to Geneva tourism is very, very interesting, because I think we see a lot of destinations a bit desperate when it comes to data. They don't really know where to begin or what to do with it. And you've got a pretty impressive record there of building kind of using business intelligence tools to really analyze and visualize data. And people like me need it visualized so we can sort of quickly see what's going on and not get too much of a headache over the kind of how that's all done. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so I think who wins the best background award for you, Ramona, seeing as someone mentioned it.
Emma's trying to get some bonus points.
For me, it's Kate.
Yeah, for me, it's Kate. It's a nice placement with flag, yeah.
She mentioned being in Paris, and she seems to have created a very classical background for herself. So thanks, thanks for that. You win that. So let's dive into the, or shall I say, I'm scared to use the word dive now after JP suggested you might start sinking. Let's dip into the challenges that we gathered from all of the industry who responded on Twitter, and they shared us those challenges. Like I said, we had about 50 shortlisted. Yesterday we looked at those on a giant challenge board, and today we're going to dip into some of the strategic challenges that we've broken down. So a little bit less than 50, so it's a bit more manageable. So yeah, what should we start with? Let's maybe kick off with the first challenge that Emma and Talia chose, which is being able to market the destination in a way that is authentic and distinctive. All too often, they cry, "We have something for everyone," and all the visitor hears is, "This is not for me." So that was a challenge that both Talia and Emma picked out as something that sort of resonated with them. So tell us a little bit, guys, about why you picked that as one of your challenges. What your thoughts are on that?
Do you want to go first, Talia?
Sure. I actually feel really passionate about this topic, and that's actually why I decided to go from journalism into the DMO side. I was on a phone interview with Hawaii and Detroit in the same day, like 10 years ago when I was working as a journalist, and I asked each destination why they stood out to me, and they both said, or what tourists would find interesting about them, and they said, "Oh, we have shopping, dining, and nightlife." And I was like, "You're not serious? Like, you're such different destinations. You should be able to articulate what makes you different." And of course, they have their own spin on shopping, dining, and nightlife, I'm sure. But a lot of destinations, I don't think, understand kind of what that it factor is and what motivates people to come. Then how do you kind of blend that with not focusing too much on the Eiffel Tower or Petra or these one-dimensional monuments? So I just think it's kind of the main value proposition of a DMO to really understand what stories you should tell in an authentic way that really motivates people to come there, without being like, we have shopping, dining, and nightlife, like, literally everywhere else in the world. I mean, nightlife in Hawaii might be a tiki bar overlooking the ocean, so how do you dimensionalize that to make it more interesting? Emma?
We hear a lot about, I think destinations starting to realize that kind of nuancing and looking at niche kind of verticals within their whole kind of brand mix has become much more important, especially a lot of destinations typically focus on so-called mature markets, and they're seeing that the maturity of those markets means they just are not interested in a destination which does everything or has those huge monuments. It's just not what's kind of ticking their boxes. So yeah, Emma, what are your thoughts on that? Why did you pick that one?
I picked this one because I think it's got kind of a brand element to it for me, and it's sort of how you choose to portray yourself as a destination. And I think the biggest challenge really for destinations is to not look so much at what they think they offer that's different, but actually look and see what people are saying they offer. So I think probably the biggest tip I'd give for this would be to actually look at what people are saying about the destination, see what people are commenting on, what people are enjoying, what they're taking away from their trip that makes it different. Because those are the things that make you different. It's not what you think makes you different that makes you different. It's what your visitors think. And it's looking at other destinations that are similar and seeing what they're not offering that gives you that kind of opportunity to do something different. So I think the biggest challenge is to actually almost stop looking kind of internally for what you think you are, but actually look and see what people are actually getting from the experience. That's what you are, and that's what you should be marketing.
Great. Thanks a lot. I think we're going to go on to the next challenge because we're already halfway through the time we've allocated for the stream. So the next challenge is one that Jean-Philippe has chosen to focus on. I'll just read it out. To get small business partners to realize the importance of digital presence and transformation, updating basic information, photos, texts, and offers, so that the tourist does not have to reach a dead end with old or lacking information. to offer the help and inspiration needed in these cases and facilitate the change. And that was submitted by Charlotte Dalsgaard from Reisjoning. I believe that's correct. My Norwegian is sketchy, say the best. Reisjoning for Fjord Tourism. So I hope a Norwegian is going to send us a message in the chat and tell me how bad that was. So yeah, JP, tell us why that one stood out to you.
Well, for me it was more than a challenge. It was like a few years ago. Meaning that, back in 2012, we had the challenge of revamping all the websites. And we say, anyway, we have a lot of restaurants, a lot of museums there, a lot of places to promote. I mean, we need to get the data in terms of pictures, description, everything. So we end up with creating a platform for them to use. So we spent 5-6 months to design a platform, and then we send this proposal to all museums, all restaurants, and so for them to be able to fill in those information, so that we can push them on the website and get some great information. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it's a little bit sad to say, but they are more focused on the local business than international business. So what we're facing is we had really some challenge in getting those data. So at the end of the day, we had to pick up somebody from in the company, looking for those data and pushing for those pictures and pushing for those information. So it's really for us, challenging in terms of getting those information and makes them understand that, okay, yes, we are in Geneva. Yes, we are, I would say, French-speaking area, but the world out there is, plenty of different languages. So it was really, I would say, not a fight, but a difficult time in terms of challenge to get the data. But one of the things we found out is, like 1 year ago, we decided to work on a program for our media team. And I started to organize some brainstorm about, okay, what journalists are willing to receive when they are coming to visit your city or visit your destination. And we started to do some brainstorm. And what we found out is it was experience, live, direct contact with people. And we end up with, what we call kind of ambassador program. So basically we approach we do have some wine in Geneva, and for example, we approached some guys having vineyards, so we could get into those direct connection, within the destination. For example, we had a Russian person from the CERN, and she was she was living in Geneva. So when we had a group coming from Russia, she could get the group with her, even for 1 or 2 hours, and get a personal feeling about the destination. So one of the challenges more to find and to identify some, I would say, key ambassador to push the destination and to push, content and everything. But looking around, trying to find all local business, all local restaurants, it would be kind of, I would say nightmare. But if you can identify some key ambassadors, because the more we are going to digital, the more we are going to data and everything, but the more we are also going down to connect people, and people are willing to have direct connection. Meaning that when we have a group of journalists coming to this destination, and they give this nice program about destination, but they go to vineyards, they meet the people, or they meet the fishermen on the lake, and they have got real life content. For them it's just different. It's not just like one destination or so. It's really a key point for to push for the destination. So this I would say for this challenge.
Great, thanks a lot. Any thoughts on that? How does that kind of connect with the experiences that you've had? Ramona, working with destinations?
Yeah, I think, working with partners and local businesses is always a challenge because first of all, you need to get them to understand, what digital is all about, because they have their own idea what they would like to do. So I think it's always, being able to show them, the value of sort of meeting you halfway, and then at the same time, as a destination, really making sure that you show and prove that your digital activities are also beneficial then for the partners and the stakeholders. But it is always a tough one because as the DMO website and the DMO activities are changing, partners and stakeholders also need to find their role within that and the businesses itself. So it's sometimes a challenging relationship, but I think one that a lot of destinations are now looking into and really trying to make sure that everybody's on the same page, because if you're moving forward together, it's definitely beneficial. So it's all about collaboration, I think.
Absolutely. And the next one we've picked is we haven't picked it actually. It's
Ljubljana Tourism, yeah.
Exactly. So this is picked by Harry and Kate, and I'll just read it out. So it says, refocusing our website towards the content travelers really need from us. We need to bring out the most relevant content for our target personas, one that will get rid of the irrelevant stakeholder listings, and one that will provide the best possible online experience for Ljubljana for visitors. It must be practical and useful to the maximum, experimental and true to the local environment. Basically, our challenge is to invent the concept of the DMO website for the future, and that's coming from Uroš, who's the digital lead at Visit Ljubljana. So thanks, Uroš, for sending that over. So I'll go over to Harry first of all. Why did you pick that one? What's your view on that?
My view on that. I think it's a nice example of a combination of what's being said before, from the authentic part to the data part. One thing I've been doing over the last year is run a postgraduate course. Here comes a story. So run a postgraduate course called Digital Business for people in similar situations, people in jobs, in marketing departments or whatever, that have challenges when it comes to implementing technology into their marketing mix, so to speak. And in the beginning of the course, I asked them to see where they stand. On the left side of the wall is like, if you believe in data, go stand there. If you believe in sort of brand authenticity, go there. And people pick a choice. And then 12 weeks later, I asked them to do that again as a reflection on what they've learned, and they all move towards the middle. So twice I've seen that happen. And they start noticing that data immensely important, learning from real facts, etc., etc. And on the other side, you see the human side becoming more important. And I think that's what is interesting about this challenge, is that once you got the facts and the figures and the numbers and the data, on the other side, you've got studies that say that the most important skill for people to have in these digitally challenged times is empathy. I.e. understanding what people want. And there's no blueprint for the perfect, what did they call it? The future website for DMOs. There's definitely not a blueprint for it, but there's a way of working towards it. Data-driven, empathy-driven, understanding what you want. And the other thing I want to say on that is that they've called it, I just have to look at it, which is really like, invent the concept of the website. I'd like to add to that inventing a website is maybe a wrong way of looking at it, but it's sort of constantly fine-tuning whatever you're doing. Someone told me once, like, when was the last time that Amazon relaunched their website?
Never.
They just constantly tweak and find and adapt it to whatever the insights are of that moment, whether that's a day or a week or whatever. But that's a different way of looking at it and trying to get the most out of what your customer at that point wants, or you think they want, or you can back it up with data.
Great. Good takeaways there. Thanks a lot, Harry. And I'm going to move over to Kate, but we're also going to move over to the work that Kate's been doing on the mural. So if we head over to the mural now that we are looking at, and we're looking at these challenges, we'll see that Kate has, and we're going to explain a bit more about all of this tomorrow when we actually talk about how we use Mural specifically and how we do these sort of online and offline workshops. But Kate here has done a great job of actually being a workshop participant effectively in a digital space, and she's written her thoughts onto the mural. So, Kate, tell us a bit what you've done here. Just explain to us, perhaps.
Sure. So for me, it was really about looking at this, this comment or this challenge in terms of the user experience. There obviously the branding and the voice are very important, as we were speaking about, but also creating an experience that's going to be easy and enjoyable for the person coming to the site. So one of the big things is keeping it very simple, creating a clear path to the most important content. So as you'll see in Mural here, I put some stickies up of various points. I may or may not stick to them as I speak right now, but so having a clear path, but also I think one thing that's really important, and it's this one here, which is if you have important content that you really want to get out there, whether it's highlighting your top attractions or highlighting really dialed in information about how to get around, how to get there, how to book certain activities, etc. It would be really great to do that, not just by written material, but also in video or in infographics, because everyone learns differently. And also infographics or video, for example, as content types are movable. They can be posted on your social media in ways that your written content can't quite as much. And it can drive traffic back to your site by kind of expressing what they'll find there. So I think that's a really important thing. And I think that ultimately you're creating a blog. You're creating an authoritative and comprehensive blog that's going to make it super simple for people to envision their trips, envision themselves in the destination, and go ahead and get that confidence to book. And I have to say, I know you guys were talking about Wonderful Copenhagen yesterday, but their website really is a wonderful example of having this very streamlined approach. It's easy to plan a trip. I mean, if every destination had a site like that, travel would be easy everywhere in the world. So I do think that that's a good place to look to get some inspiration. I know Gerard had said, there's no one template, and there certainly is not one template. But I feel confident that using a site like theirs as inspiration would really be helpful. And something that I found with their sites, for example, there's a consistency in the tone, in the voice, in the personality. You're not kind of jumping around from different perspectives to cater to your different niches. As people say, when you have a very distinct voice, you'll actually appeal to more people instead of trying to adapt yourself to many others, and you end up not appealing to anyone. It's a common issue.
Absolutely. And I think I would agree that it actually has a tone. I think that's one of the points that sometimes we were saying yesterday, that perhaps it's because some destinations struggle to communicate that in English. But it's a good example of a destination site that has a very distinct tone.
Right, and people are traveling because they want to go experience that tone. They want to go experience that culture. So it is important to display that perspective. Obviously, every culture has different facets, but I think there's a way to communicate a general theme.
Yeah, great.
I want to say one more thing. I know we're getting through this quick, but also thinking about providing a cachet that these websites can, the DMO websites can provide, like exclusive deals and discounts that can go deeper than other sites can. I think they have special access that can make the sites even more interesting to the public, to travelers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think JP's experience of working with a city card as your kind of key data points and tying that up with the story of the destination and the visitor experience, I think that's a sort of marrying of three completely different areas of what the DMO does, but where the three can really, if it's sort of, if it has the right leadership and the right vision, the three can really come together in a very complementary way, where the story is rich and strong, and the customer experience is incredible, and just excellent, and the intelligence that's being generated through that is kind of fully optimized. I think I haven't. Well, I guess there are good examples, but I think it would be great to see one that stands out on all three strands, because that would be a kind of circular design approach to a destination, which would be fully holistic. We find often that, say, a city card sits in a silo to the story, almost always, I would say. And I think the reason for that is, for example, using city card providers, that naturally kind of leaves it plugged out in a way, just because of how it's kind of how that comes together. So there's so many ideas here. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys, before we sort of move on and start talking about the services that you've developed, which is sort of trying to crack some of these challenges, any kind of reactions to what each of you have just said?
I was going to say, thinking about what everyone was saying, kind of thinking about the overall political layer of DMOs and understanding how all of our services can be introduced in kind of an enabling environment for those changes to happen. So I think that's something just for us to be mindful of. And especially when we were talking about the website and changing listings earlier, getting your partners, convincing your partners to do things like that can sometimes be a challenge. I know it was a challenge for us when we were redoing our website, although unlike Amazon, we did a big launch. I'm kind of wishing I thought a little differently about that now, but trying to, how do you work with your teams to kind of get them to buy into this change, I think is a really big part of this landscape that we're in. And I'm sure anyone that's worked in the DMO will understand that sort of challenged by people that are really interested in all that's going on. So just something to think about as we go throughout the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that destinations are full of passionate people, but also passionate critics. And that's one of the biggest headaches that I think everyone we work with, that they're usually so worried before we start working with them, because they want to make sure it goes well, because they have critics on the sidelines just ready to jump in and say, hey, this is public money, this is being spent badly, you're not doing enough for us. I think that's a really good point about involving involving your partners, involving your industry in the whole process. And that's something that's we haven't tapped the potential of using remote design with your industry and partners as well. But having a much wider net, part of a collaborative process, I think that's a really exciting opportunity. And sort of simple things that also you can do in person, like Harry was talking about with the, just getting people to sort of physically be part of the ideation process by saying, which side do I stand on? Why do I choose that? It's a very kind of meaningful process, because they kind of commit to, the bigger idea rather than kind of sort of observe it and then complain about, perhaps what they don't like at the end of it.
Yeah, I think inviting everyone to be part of that thought process can often, allow you to discuss things more openly, and everybody can chip in, their ideas and thoughts, and that can be quite helpful. So rather than, putting partners and stakeholders and businesses in front of this is what we're going to do, we're going to make everything different, I think involving them in that process can be, quite powerful. And again, I think the work that Copenhagen's doing at the moment, where they're doing a lot, as part of their strategy development, they really worked a lot with, locals, they worked a lot with businesses that they normally don't work with, and they were also a bit scared, what are they going to say? What feedback are they going to give us? Are they going to be really critical and just, think they're mad now about wanting to change things? But for them, it was really beneficial. So I think getting everybody to be part of that process can be so powerful.
Yeah, great. So thanks a lot, guys. So heading back to Mural just very quickly, we have lots of other notes added to the board here. We're going to talk a bit tomorrow about how we do this, but just to take a look, what we love about this is actually this hybrid approach where you have those stakeholders and you can just hand them sticky notes and ask them to put their ideas under different parts of a wall. And what we do is then we have a process where we can just grab them and then import them into a bigger board where perhaps experts, facilitators, partners have already done some thinking, and sort of add them to the process. So here's some of the ideas that sort of came up this week with people who came in, sort of like developing an always-on strategy, for example, deal with failure, testing your website, looking at your brand promise. People, were suggesting like minimum viable products, thinking about, the importance of that. Looking into existing media. Sometimes we just kind of jump over what we already have when it's actually quite valuable. I'm sure Kate can appreciate that. And lots of ideas that can be shared in person without kind of any technical interference or anything like that. Lots of opportunities with remote design that we'll dig into tomorrow. But let's head over and talk about some of the services that Ramona has been working with you guys on developing. So yesterday we spoke about the 2 months or so that you've been sort of solidly locked down designing wireframes, templates, canvases, all sorts of things, working with the experts to discuss how we can deliver these things. So I will kind of pass the baton back to you and perhaps leave you to introduce a little bit the services and how you've worked with these guys.
I think that the experts actually did most of the work, because the hardest thing is actually to think about, what is a challenge that a destination is facing, and how can we solve that in a way that doesn't require, months of work or, a very complicated strategy. So the idea is really to use remote design methods. And I've worked with them quite closely in terms of designing the different canvases. So I think we've designed about 50 canvases between our 10 experts, but we have more and more that we're developing at the moment. So actually every service that you see on the website has its own toolkit that the expert is then using when delivering the service. So we can deliver them remotely. Some are also a mix of a face-to-face workshop and then some remote design sessions. And the idea is really that to give a destination a tangible outcome and really make sure that, that is something that the destination can then implement, take away further, and almost to work looking at the expert team as an extended team where a lot of the ideas are being worked on continuously. So you can really get that continued support. And I think probably it's best if each of the experts talk a little bit more about what their services actually mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's keep in the same order. Let's keep consistent. We like consistency. So let's head back to Kate. And Kate, over to you. Tell us a little bit about the services that you've been developing with Ramona.
Sure. So as we've said, I'm the video person, and I am specializing for this particular product on video for Facebook and YouTube. And as we know, video inspires like no other type of content can in such a quick manner. It incites wanderlust, and of course, it disseminates fears. People really can watch a video and realize, I kind of understand what it's like to be there, and now ultimately I can go ahead and book. And I feel like even on these various platforms, there's also a great advantage to having video beyond just video being effective. And that is, for example, on Facebook, as we know, video is the most eye-catching medium. The algorithms are set up so that you automatically a lot of your followers will get to see your video post more than other posts. And also, when you boost your videos, they tend to get more views than other content that you're boosting. And then on YouTube, it's also important to have a dialed-in strategy, because YouTube is the second largest search engine, and people are going to be going onto YouTube and looking for their destination, planning their travels, and it's clear that there's already a conversation, there's already video happening on YouTube about your destination, and it's important that you are, as a destination, you're part of that conversation, if not leading as an authority on that conversation. But as we all know, video can be more expensive. It can be, not always, and it can be more of a time commitment. So my product, this first one that we have kind of outlined for Digital Tourism Think Tank, is all about helping you to do everything right, basically. Work with the best practices that you can on the various platforms, and also work within your own your own organization, augment the capabilities of your own organization. So what my product is it's an audit. So we'd be going in and looking at your existing video programs on these various platforms, and looking at your successes and looking at the areas for improvement, and ultimately creating a rather bespoke plan for your organization going forward, and how to reach the success and the goals that you specifically have. So before we started, we would even have you fill out a questionnaire that gives an idea of your specific goals, your resources, who you have on your team, what your content calendar looks like, what your campaign calendar looks like. So really making it specific and doable for your organization. And so that's this first product I have, but of course, going forward, it could be also helping with the implementation of this plan. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that when we delivered this audit, it would be on Mural, on this great remote platform that we've been working on, and with a call. So we would be going through, just like kind of we are today, Mural, as well as presenting the findings and presenting the roadmap.
Great. I have to say, I hope nobody will get upset by this, but of all of the canvases, the video ones with Kate are my favorite, because it's really long.
It's huge.
It's unusual to have such a kind of long canvas. It makes you kind of want to put it on a roll and just kind of unwind it. But what's great is like when all of that analysis and auditing goes into that, you have such a visually powerful thing that you can actually print out and put all over the kind of marketing team's office. And you can really kind of reflect on that. I mean, that audit should be good probably for a year, with all the long and short-term changes. You're going to put that into a kind of work list. And that's something that the team can really just keep reflecting on every few weeks, just have another look at it and see, okay, maybe it's talking about the tone, or maybe it's talking about, where video is working and where it's not working. And it's just such a valuable resource. So I think they're getting a lot more than just the recommendations, but they're also getting a kind of a very strong kind of visual guideline that's going to work for quite a long time to come. Thanks a lot, Kate. Looking forward to working with you on that. So, Gerry, over to you. Let's tell us about your services.
Cool. We've decided to develop something particularly niche and focused around content strategy. Content strategy is probably not new to most people, so we decided to one-up it and make a little specific extra layer on it. Content marketing is a lot about relevance, creating relevance, and finding out why people would care about your subject matter. But in these times of content overload, as someone once said, if it doesn't spread, it's dead. So getting your own content distributed and shared on social media, etc., is an intrinsic part and a very difficult part. So over the last 2 years or so, I've experimented with workshop formats and developed a little framework, which is a new terminology. So after SEO, we now have SHO, sharing optimization. And that's what we do. So we developed a workshop over 2.5 days, I believe, aimed at content producers, editors, creative types, etc., to learn or to get insights in how to make their content that little bit more shareable, give it more chance of tapping into the sharing need of people. Why do people share something? There are tricks and tips around that have proven with other clients to increase sharing ratios by up to 100%, crazy stuff like that. So it's psychology manipulation translated into sort of content
I'm a sucker for those things, I have to tell you. So if I understand correctly, you're still focusing on the digital aspect of that, or also focusing on the kind of physical interaction with the environment.
It's more, well, the output is more about tricks and tips to get your content spread in digital aspects, but there's nothing, we have an ideation session in there and nothing forbids us from coming up with new products that become more shareable or tap into that sharing need. So in that sense, it's slightly more open, but I know that the immediate needs for people that we make all this content and we get 0 shares on Facebook. All right, let's try and fix that and see what comes out of it.
I think this is a great example of where yesterday we were talking about collaborating and combining both services and expertise. I think yesterday we were talking with Stefan about his work with the businesses and with the destination to make sure the brand kind of delivers on its promise when people are in the destination, and really pulling out the key kind of things which don't match it and things which do match it. So I think there's a really nice kind of tie-in there. Thanks a lot, Harry. That's great. Also very interesting. SHO, I have to start, talking about SHO all the time. So Talia, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm working on a few services, mostly focused around content and partnerships. So there's 3 different services around content that all kind of feed into the overall framework of what you're working on and complement the other services that you just heard from. So just going to pull them up really quickly. So the first one is about content optimization and how, kind of figuring out what content you have and how that aligns with your audience, with your business goals. It's probably about a day of work, and they're all kind of interchangeable or can be maximized just like any of our services. So depending on what you're looking for as a destination, you can kind of pick and choose and customize the right content program for you. The other ones focus more on manufacturing. So if you have a new or growing team, or you're experiencing some hiccups, like how do you make content efficiently and effectively that's also very compelling? So I was a managing editor of a magazine for about 4 years. So kind of taking that systems-based approach to content. I know it's not the sexiest side of content, but it's very necessary, and you could really rack up costs or be really inefficient if you're not thinking about the process. And then the third service around content is really about core stories. So really touching back to that authenticity. So who are you as a destination? What should you be talking about, and how does that motivate action? So that is probably the most involved, and it also involves research, because again, it's not just about your opinion of what your favorite thing to do in town. It's about looking at the data, as we've been talking about a lot today, and understanding why people are coming to your destination, and how that sets apart from the competition. The travel landscape is extremely competitive now. 20 and 30 years ago, there wasn't as many destinations to go to and not as much noise out there and so many channels. So how do you stand out from the clutter with these core stories? And like Emma said earlier, how is this kind of consistently for your brand? Because content really is part of your brand, and how do you bring your brand to life through storytelling? And then lastly, I'll be working on strategic partnerships, which I'm really passionate about. I've seen some really great partnerships in tourism, and partnerships are a wonderful way to stretch your budget and reach new audiences through these different private sector, public sector partners. Also, as a DMO, partnerships allow you to actually track your travel. So if you partner with a tour operator or an airline, you can actually see how much they book versus, 10 people read my article. It's more powerful to say, we did this campaign and 20 people actually booked a flight to come here. So how can you also work with the challenges of DMOs to really bring those strategic partnerships to the table? So that workshop will be focused more on the framework for partnerships, because you could also have not so effective partnerships that can be a waste of time and money and frustration. So how do you understand what you want out of a partnership, what ideal partners look like? How do you define some rules for engagement so that everyone gets something out of it? And how does that partnership ultimately ladder up to your overall strategy? Because, again, everyone can get distracted by shiny, exciting things that could sound cool on paper, but how is that also helping you reach your end goals at the end of the year.
Great.
So I'm excited to be a part of this, and thank you to everyone, especially Ramona, for helping me develop them.
Great. Thanks a lot, Talia. That's, yeah, I mean, it goes without saying that there's just a huge demand right now to get this right from destinations. I think building that framework and working out how to kind of maximize the value of partners is so huge. And you're talking, I think yesterday we were talking about influencers, and one of the influences you should not forget is the influence of your commercial partners and how they can really help you reach new markets, new audiences. We saw recently at our Content Campus event in Copenhagen, we saw a great example of destinations working with brands that are complementary but not necessarily at all in the same sector. And I think that's a great example where you can tap in to their customer base. So yeah, great. Thanks a lot. And moving swiftly over to Emma.
Hello. Just unmute myself. So my main service is around brand and sort of visual identity and your visual presence online. So originally this was something I looked at separately, the idea of brand and your website and your sort of digital presence, but I think they're actually all part of the same thing. So I've kind of merged them into one service now that can be kind of made smaller or larger based on your needs. So what I will do really is start with an audit, because to know where you're going and where you need to go with it, you need to know what you've got, why it's not working, why it's working. You don't want to particularly throw the baby out with the bathwater. There might be things that are really working well for your brand. So I look at kind of all elements of the brand, tone of voice, the imagery you're using, all the way back down to your kind of brand identity as it stands as a logo mark. And that's something that can be done sort of very initially, and then from that there's kind of various stages based on what comes out of that. So if it looks like there's a lot of work to be done, if it looks like a rebrand is needed, then that's something we can help with. If it's just some tweaks or some additions or some suggestions, then we can do that. So it's very much, it's quite a bespoke kind of custom service that starts with an audit, and then from there it becomes what you need it to be to make your brand really work hard for you. And also the same with your web presence. So kind of looking across your web presence, across kind of social media, but mainly at your website, and seeing visually, is it telling the story of your brand? Is it doing what it's supposed to be doing? I'm also working with a couple of the other experts to try and develop something around new technology. So things like chatbots, things like that. Do you need one? Is it just a trend or a fad? Is it something that you should be doing for your users? Do your users need it? Will it help them? So we're kind of developing that one, I think, at the moment, to kind of see what we can do. But there's kind of great expertise across the experts in those kind of areas of things like blockchain and chatbots and things like that, to kind of see, whether you could do some sort of R&D around it, some kind of initial idea generation around how you could solve some problems for your users using these technologies. So some really interesting stuff coming out of there. Yeah, that's my main kind of focus on services, is brand and sort of digital, your digital kind of landscape, like how your brand is looking online, and also new technology.
Great, thanks a lot. And yeah, we actually had an experience of a chatbot the other day. So we're all about sort of providing a really personal experience, but we also love technology, which is why the whole remote design thing works really well, because we're still, we're fully interactive, and it's like we're there in person, but everything's happening digitally. And the other day somebody came to our website, and they actually asked to speak to Nick Hall, and I happened to be the one who picked up that message. So I responded saying, "This is he," and they responded saying, "Is this a chatbot?" And I said, "No, it is Nick Hall." And they said, "This is a chatbot." And then I said, "No, it is me. How can I help you?" And they actually responded saying, "Wow, I can't believe I'm actually speaking to Nick Hall. Is this really Nick Hall?" And I said, "Yes, how can I help you?" And then they actually wanted to book a meeting. So we went ahead and booked the meeting. But it's funny that people are so... it's so rare now that you feel like you're speaking to real people. Yeah, that the human experience, it can really take you by surprise. So there you go. I love chatbots though. Okay, yeah, so over to Jean-Philippe. Oh, we've got you on mute. No, we don't. You have yourself on mute. So you'll need to press that button.
Okay, here we go.
There you go. You're back with your paper. Thank you.
Okay, well, just say it's kind of freaky, huh? What you can do with data in the next few years, with you're looking at what you do with chatbot, when you do with predictive analytics. So basically, with the three services. So there's three services that are going to work with DTT. Number one is we call it 360 data audit. Well, the question is, what is your status? What is my current situation with data, my current relation with data? If I look at the data, what's in regards to the management team? What the management thinks about all those data? Are they, interested in it or not at all, or at some point? So it's basically what you're going to do. It's also through Mural. What is your current situation and what is your, I would say, desired state in terms of data, in terms of strategy, and in terms of organization. So the first one would be kind of audit or status. The second service they're going to work on, it's called data analytics from data to decisions. It's more problem oriented. So let's say you need to reduce your marketing budget and you want to maximize, which country you're going to target, and you need to have more, you want to have more details about this situation. Well, we'll go through a 5-step approach. I would say to slice the problem in different level and into, I would say, manageable pieces, like we're doing in project management, and to get some good recommendation. So this will be the second service, focus on the problem-oriented. And the last one, we'll talk about requirement. When you start to do, I would say, business intelligence, as the main work, which is in short, brings the right info to the right person at the right time, in a nutshell. You need to gather some good requirements, because looking around in terms of BI tools, when you're looking at, the main ones is Tableau, or Microsoft is doing one, or ClickView and all one. But there's so many requirements that you need to look after, before starting to implement your dashboard. What are the foundation? What is the change management you need to look at in your company? Meaning that do you have a single, I would say, single view, or single, are you keen on KPI? Are you aligned in terms of KPI? Do you have only KPI for your marketing department, or you have the same KPI or one general KPI linked with all your departments and all your company? So it will be really about, kind of, I would say kind of a checklist, to talk about the foundation of your dashboards, the structure, what you can do. And the last part will be about, what we call in DataVis information design. And because we always also talk about design, when you start to look into data, if you start to dig into it, you want to see so many things at the same time. Plenty of dashboard and everything. But at the end of the day, you need to be really focused on what are the key elements you need to show and what's the story behind. Because it's all about storytelling. We are talking about contents. We are talking about bringing the right info to the right person, also for the website. But business intelligence and data analytics is also talking about all this storytelling. That means you need to bring, I would say life to data. Make the story behind it, and really help. So really, the last service is really to, I would say, help selecting the right tool and get the right, dashboard in place, to start managing the start point. So 3 services to talk about data.
Great.
I think it's exciting because out of all of the services, I think big data or also technology is really probably one of the scariest ones in a way, because a lot of destinations, I think we can't tackle that. It's just too big. How are we even gonna start?
Yeah.
You know, we should have started 5 years ago. Now we're really behind. But in a way, you know, as long as, well, with all of the other services as well, it's really about finding the right approach for your destination, making sure, you know, that your team can take that forward, and then really building out those ideas internally with the help of the experts, and then really building on that, making sure that you've got actionable insights and that you know sort of what you need to work on, what are the next steps, and then really taking those forward. And I think, yeah, remote design is really all about that, really just enabling someone in a short amount of time to really get all of that input that you need, and then to be able to take that forward. So any topic, you know, even if it's might seem huge to you, it can be done if you work on it in small chunks, and if you really bring in the right people that can really help you with that process.
Yeah, and I think this is also why people have always come to us for help over the years, because they see that we have that knowledge, that really broad knowledge of being able to kind of benchmark and analyze so many destinations, well, all of the destinations within our kind of network, which is several hundred. And they often come to us and they say, well, you know, you've got better knowledge than anyone else. So could you maybe give us your expertise to help us navigate this, you know, new technology, or where we're going with our content, or where we're going with our brand? And we've been doing that until now in a great way. But I think this allows us to bring in so many more people to that team, and have more specialized expertise that can build from the best practices and case studies we can point to, but actually then really kind of bring them further and further, and sort of bring them down a funnel, if you like. We've structured the remote design services from sort of auditing, which a lot of you spoke about, doing that auditing process. Kate's is really focused on doing a very thorough audit of everything they're doing with video. Just as an example. Ideation, the sort of thing that I would say Igor especially and Harry have spoken a lot about. Ideation being really a slightly different way of using remote design to create a space, a blank space, where everybody can put their ideas together, and it's an extremely collaborative environment, right through to developing frameworks, which a lot of the experts will eventually end up channeling that knowledge and those ideas into a framework. In the case of, say, Talia, this is really developing a very structured approach that you can then take to your marketing team, to your board. Communicating is really big, by the way. So if you can't communicate to your as simple as your board members, what you're doing and why you've chosen that approach, it's going to be hard to get them behind you. So this is also being able to give a really kind of almost a map and say, look, here is what we've been working on, and actually just show that to everyone who needs to see it. And that's where the frameworks really come in handy, because, you know, they're backed up with all the auditing and ideation that came before that. And I think like something we're probably not going to touch on that much this week, but perhaps tomorrow we can focus on this, is the sort of productivity end. So if we almost translate this whole consulting approach into what you do as branding and marketing, where you talk about top of funnel and obviously sort of conversion, this whole remote process, we're talking a lot of top of funnel work where we're sort of at that starting point. But the other end of that scale is the productivity end. So, you know, we are focused a lot on our discussions today about creativity and how we think about ideas. Tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit more about how we then narrow those down, right down into really structured plans and processes, using a different set of tools as well, which help you to establish a really, really strong and consistent workflow. So, guys, thanks so much for joining us. I think it's been fascinating to hear all of your different opinions and perspectives. We will say goodbye to you first, and then we'll say goodbye to whoever's watching. So let's have a little wave from all of you, an emoji bye. Thank you very much. It's been great, and I think everyone's going to really enjoy working with you. If nothing else, they're a very nice bunch of people, so we've enjoyed developing these things with you. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. And for everyone watching on the stream, thank you so much for watching. We've been collecting your questions. We're going to get back to you on the different things you've been asking. And you can join us tomorrow at the same time. It's 3 p.m. CET, 2 if you're in the UK, and early in the morning if you're in the US, and late at night if you're in Asia. You'll have to do the calculations on that. But do send us your questions. We'll be talking about how to do a hybrid design workshop tomorrow. So that's actually pretty exciting. We've got some great case studies to dip into. And we'll also be talking more about the productivity side of this whole remote design approach, how you then turn that into a workflow. So don't forget, everything's on our site, thinkdigital.travel. And we have the new recently launched experts pages with all their services outlined. And that is simply thinkdigital.travel/remote design. And you can find all of their services which they've been talking about outlined there. So it's definitely worth having a good click into those, explore them, and you can always hit the chat and talk to us about those. Thanks very much for everybody for joining and for watching, and we'll see you back at the same time tomorrow.